Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video. And in this video, we are back here again, learning a bit about IMFD, how to use it. And of course, I have Dimitri here with me today on Skype, because if it were up to me to teach you how to use IMFD, we would be in a lot of trouble. In the last video, we set up our plan again to get out to the moon, but we took a slightly different approach to it. Instead of using the, I actually forget the name of that program, the Delta.
The target intercept program.
Yeah.
Instead of using that, we use the delta velocity and map programs, which are way more efficient. You can make a single burn from a low Earth orbit and arrive at the moon at whatever periapsis altitude you have pre-selected, and already be aligned with the base of your choice.
It's a little bit more involved to set it up, but overall it's going to prove to be a more efficient flight, because in the first flight that we did, you saw that we had, I believe it was about 160 meter per second mid-course correction. With this flight, which we're going to go ahead and accelerate time here in just a moment, we should have a much lower requirement on that mid-course correction. So without further ado, let's go ahead then and start warping time forward. I'm thinking I'll bring up Orbit MFD over here on the left side. I think that'll probably be something to look at.
You can also zoom out a little bit on the map on the right side, and you will see where the spacecraft is and the position of the moon.
Oh yeah.
This right now, what we're watching right now, is where the moon will be when we arrive. And right here is the position of the moon right now. It is going to follow its path along its trajectory and arrive here.
That's actually a more useful graphic anyway, because we get more information instead of what we see over here in orbit. MFD over here, we've got the position where the moon's at right now. We can see its SOI, and we can see where the moon's going to be, and we can see its SOI. And of course, this green line, I'm assuming this is our trajectory out to the moon. And it's
exactly.
Cool. And it's cool to see too
also,
that it's a curved path.
Yeah, and you can immediately understand as you arrive here, the moon gets closer and closer to you. It's not the other way around. You don't get close to the moon. The moon is actually hitting you. When you arrive at the apoapsis over here, you're moving at about 150 meters per second relative to Earth, and the moon is going at about 1 kilometer per second. So in a sense, the moon hits you. You don't hit the moon.
Yeah, that is
And
interesting.
another thing, if you zoom in a little bit, let me just, you can see over here how the gravity of the moon, as it's going to arrive at the rendezvous, how it's going to pull you and get you to the periapsis that you selected.
In looking at that, I was going to say, in looking at that graphic, it's interesting just how close you get to the moon before it really has any influence.
Yeah, you need to get really close. It's small.
Yeah, well, I always thought, the moon being a quarter the size of the Earth, and the way it looks in orbiter, when you don't have this information to look at, when you're just accelerating time, it kind of seems like you're getting, like the moon's doing more when you're further out, but here, you're almost on top of the moon before it does anything.
Yeah, you have to be really inside the sphere of influence of the moon before it starts to pull you. But you can also see that with this kind of periapsis, where it's going to throw you. If you just leave it and you don't make a lunar orbit insertion, you're leaving the Earth.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can use that if you want to make an interplanetary journey and save a little bit of fuel. Of course, it's not worth the trouble of setting it up, but it's pretty cool to know how to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Perhaps we'll cover that in another video.
Okay, so we are still right here at the Earth. Let's take a look, and you can see the Earth behind us, but we're right there. So let's go out to, 1,000.
Rotation.
Get a little farther out, go out to 10,000. And now, let me ask you, before we go all the way to the sphere of influence, where are we actually in the previous flight, we went all the way to the point where the moon was the strongest source of gravity. Are we doing that again before we do the mid-course correction?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, we don't have to look at anything else. But one thing you can do is I'm pressing it right now, the mode button over here, so we can see the prediction that we had when we made the burn. We were about at 45, 48 kilometers, I think. You can see how little that has changed, and also our how aligned we are with Brighton Beach. Again, very good, very nicely aligned.
Okay. I know when I use Transx, I typically wait till I'm just outside the strong source of Earth before I start setting up the first mid-course correction. Although doing it that way, again, it's not terribly accurate, but it just seems like you might use a little bit less fuel if you can do that mid-course correction out that, it would basically be right about.
Well, the only thing that would make sense to do right now would be, without even orienting the spacecraft, simply use a little bit of linear translation if you want to get even an even lower periapsis. But we can do that when we enter the lunar soil, and it's not that big a difference in delta V. I mean, we are going to use less than 10 meters per second before we make the lunar orbit insertion. So it's pretty good in terms of how efficient this flight is.
Okay. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Let me go back to 10,000 just to speed things up. See the moon coming around, and we're entering. Well, we're technically not entering the sphere of influence yet, but
Exactly that. You have not entered it yet. When you get inside this, you're inside the lunar sphere of influence. You can also switch over here to the moon on the left side on
yeah,
orbit MFD.
do that. Let me reference the moon. And just trying to make sure I don't overshoot. Okay, we're really close here, and right about there. Now we're in the sphere of influence of the moon, and I suppose it's time to set up a mid-course correction.
You can also see that over here the graphic changed over here, and now you have the moon as the reference of the map.
That's kind of like the stages updating in Transx.
Exactly. You can zoom in a little bit if you want.
Okay.
Now, let's leave that as it is over here. On the left side, you can open up again Interplanetary MFT.
Okay.
Okay, hit the menu button and go to the base approach program.
Okay, now to get out of this program, do we just press menu? Okay, yeah.
Exactly. Target Brighton Beach. Set your periapsis altitude.
Okay, and we can do set, and we have to remember to put a K after it, because otherwise it's just 20 meters.
You cannot, yeah, it is always meters over there. If you wanted 20 million meters for some reason, you have to press 20 and capital M. Otherwise, if you just press the number, it's 20 meters above the surface. Okay, this is altitude, not distance from the center. So right now we have a 20-kilometer altitude. And now you have to select from the approach for this the base approach program. You want to say what you want to approach for, and you want to approach for an orbit insert.
Okay. What's the difference between, re-entry, I'm assuming, of course, is if you want to, like atmospheric re-entry?
Yes.
Okay.
Or if you want to do a direct landing at the moon.
Okay.
So you can see right now that we only need 2.9 meters per second
Wow.
to make this to align perfectly with the base this distance, and to have this altitude over here, 20 kilometers. Sometimes it's a little bit better to leave this maneuver for later. I usually wait until it goes up to 5 meters per second, so I go a little bit deeper inside the lunar soil. and make the burn then.
And that's just for improved accuracy.
Yeah, because if you make the correction this far out, the same like we did in the previous video where we did the basic lunar approach, you saw that we make the correction this far out, but then when we arrived at the periapsis, we still needed another correction.
Yeah, because it went from 20 kilometers to 33 kilometers in that other one.
Mm-hmm.
And we were
And
17 kilometers off from the base. Or
yeah, and
14.
you also whatever we do here, we can directly see the effects on the map, which is going to be a little bit more accurate than what the program says, especially this far out.
Okay. And so if you wanted to do this burn here, there's no additional fiddling that you have to do. So
No,
IMFD is...
simply page, burn vector, and either the auto burn, or in this case, it's not even worth orienting the spacecraft. I mean, you're going to waste more fuel. You simply use linear RCS and you follow the burn vector with linear RCS. We can do it right now if you want, but I'd wait. Let's go a little bit deeper inside the lunar soil until we have about 5 meters per second correction to make.
Yeah, let's do that, and let's definitely bring up the burn vector so we can see how you can do the burn without wasting the fuel of orienting. I understand what you're saying, but I think it'll be good to illustrate that point. So let's warp time forward. How close do you think we should get? You said till the DV gets up to about 5?
You look, yeah.
Okay.
It may drop before it goes up again.
But as we get closer to the moon, all the predictions become more accurate. So there we are. We're about 5 now.
Okay. So you can hit page and the burn vector.
Okay.
And now simply use linear RCS. Well, obviously you want to use down and a little bit to the left until you get the crosshair in the center, and then it's going to be either forward or backwards.
So using linear translation, where we want to get the X in the center, and then we will have basically forward translation from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's try. Because I could actually see how if you don't get this part right, you would end up using more fuel than you would if you let IMFD orient it.
Yeah, or you can simply use very little RCS, just a tap, and use time 10x to orient the
Right.
ship. This is also, but this is for people like you and me who are crazy about fuel. So it's not that. I think I gave you that bug about the fuel efficiency.
You definitely did.
Yeah.
I was always concerned about it, not wanting to waste, but I definitely didn't have the bug until we started talking last year. So I could see by using up translation that the total delta V is going down, but it's not really seeming. It doesn't seem like it's moving the X at all.
Well, right now I think it's like it's behind you, so perhaps you're using up or down.
I'm using up. I'm using 8 at the moment.
Yeah, try 8 and 9 together to see if it's forward or backward. If you press 9 and it goes down, it means that this X is actually behind you. You need to lose some velocity.
Okay, well, the total's going down though, so that's improving.
That's what you want. That's what you want.
Yeah.
You want to look at the total.
So I'm using a bit of 9 and 8. And yeah, I think actually though, I'll show this other concept. So if we use a little bit of rotation, we could even do, control 2, for example, then 10. So that uses almost no fuel to orient the vessel. And when that plus sign is directly to the right of me or to the left of me, then I'm assuming I'm going to want to rotate left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's put in a tap of left rotation. See, that orientation actually is easier to understand than the way the TransX works. I can't always understand when it's off in the far corners which way I need to rotate.
because it could be on the side or it could be essentially behind you. That's
Yeah.
why it gets a little bit confusing. But with a little bit of practice, it's really easy to understand it.
Okay, we're almost there. Well, at least we almost got the plus in the center. Okay, so the plus is in the center, but the X is still a bit above us. So what do we know based on that?
No, this X is, you mean this one over here?
Yeah, we got the X is up here, but the plus is now in the center. So do we just simply...
That's what you want. You want the plus in the center, and you simply try to burn a little bit forward first, and there is a chance that, nah, yeah, it's dropping, so that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so this X here, this one doesn't move.
No, that's the spacecraft orientation, the roll.
Okay, well that explains that then, because I was actually trying to get that X to move. You know, I thought I was trying to get the X center, but okay. Well, at any rate, everything's all zeroed out now.
Now you can see on the right side, we have the periapsis at 20, almost 20 kilometers. It's 20.48, and we have lost some of the angle here at Brighton Beach, but that's okay, because by the time we arrive at periapsis, make the bird, and do another orbit to get to the base, the moon will rotate very slightly, of course. The moon takes 27 days to rotate, doesn't rotate as fast as the Earth, but that very slight rotation would make the correction by itself. Now, from this stage, I usually time forward again, and time warp forward again, and make another very slight correction, almost like this one, when I'm about 10 minutes before periapsis. So about 600 seconds.
Now, just a question before we do time warp forward. The angle that we're looking at here, do we know that that's going to get closer to zero, or is it going to get farther away? In other words...
No, you don't want to get it exactly to zero. You want to follow the base approach program.
Okay.
So you leave that here as it is, and
Gotcha.
you time warp until you get to periapsis a little bit earlier than periapsis, about 10 minutes.
So the base approach program, is it taking the moon's rotation into account, basically?
Yes,
Okay.
because if you go exactly at zero right now, by
Right.
the time you arrive at the base, the moon will rotate slightly. Now, it's a very slow rotation, and it won't make a lot of a difference. You can either use the basing is what we are using.
I'm familiar with it, yeah.
Yeah, but the base approach program is pretty much doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well,
But
that's
you get
really
there
good to
in one
know.
orbit.
That's really good to know because, again, you know, since I have a lot of transx history, I know that, you know, the distance off base or the off plane distance, I think the encounter view calls it, as far as I know, that doesn't take into account the rotation of the moon. So if you set the distance off base, you know, to Brighton Beach to zero, then by the time you warp time forward, that little bit of rotation the moon has, it's going to be there. So, you know, basically, you know, transx doesn't take that rotation into account as far as I know.
Well, interplanetary IMFD does take it into account, and you will see when we make the final correction, we will still have a little bit of angle left, but we don't want it exactly at zero because of the moon's rotation.
Okay, so next step then is to warp time forward till we get down to about 600 seconds. Let's go ahead and do that. Being careful not to overshoot.
Here I have, let's say, something like a rule. Either it gets to 600 seconds or this goes above 5, because I don't want to use more than 10 meters per second for my correction.
Right.
But that's just me, okay? So either this goes above 5 or this goes to 600.
Whichever comes first.
Comes first, exactly.
Yeah.
Usually it's this, the 600 seconds. You're not going to use more than that for more than 5 meters per second for correction.
Yeah, we only have a meter here coming up, so let's go ahead now, and we're about 600 seconds. So here, if I'm understanding this plus correctly, I would need to basically translate a little bit of 3 and a little bit of 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because that
Yeah.
basically works like the VOR VTOL, where when you're trying to get the
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When you're trying to get the uh, to the base, the arrow lined up with the landing pad.
Okay, we're basically zero. I don't suppose that I can't get that
Nah,
last little
you're
bit,
okay.
0.01, but
You're okay. You're fine. And you can see now you're exactly at 20 kilometers, and there is a little bit of angle left, which is taking into account the rotation of the moon.
okay. So then, um, obviously, circularization is going to be the next step.
Exactly.
And do we
You
do
can
that the
either do
same
it on
way?
the exactly the same way. You go to the orbital program from the menu.
And then when we get
The, f-
to, we're going to basically warp time forward to this number, and
mhm.
then it'll be half of that when we actually do the braking, or when we actually do the circularization.
Yes, the steps are go to this number on the periapsis time. Hit the AB button to orient the spacecraft. Don't let it make the burn. Simply orient the spacecraft and hit the AB button again just before the burn. And then wait until this number is half the burn time, and then you make the burn.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's do that. We did that before, so we should be at least partially familiar with that. So this number was showing about 74 seconds. So we're going to warp time forward till the PET over here says 74 seconds. Then we're going to press the AB button just to let it orient the vessel, but not actually let it do the burn. And then once we get to the PET gets to half of whatever that number is at that time, then we press the AB button to actually do the burn.
Okay, now let me clarify here something. I use that with a Delta glider, okay? If you had a very big ship that takes a long time to turn around and orient itself, like the Arrow, it would probably be better to do the orientation ahead of time instead of using this way.
Good point. Yeah, some of the vessels do take quite a bit more time to orient. Even the Vanguard takes more time than the Delta
Mhm.
Glider or XR2. Okay, so we're getting down to the point where we'll get the vessel oriented. And that's pretty close, so I'm going to go ahead and
Mhm.
orient now. Because I think we're pretty far out of orientation at the moment. And I guess right as that gets to the center, then you press AB.
Yeah, when it gets close to this circle, you press AB again and do the rest of the orientation by hand.
Okay. Now, when PET is going to be about 29 seconds, then we auto
You're
burn.
going to also give it a second more because it will have to turn a little bit.
Okay,
Or
yeah.
you can turn it, yourself now.
Yeah, let's do that just for practice. So we're going to need to go a little bit this way and a little bit, oh, that's the wrong way, a little bit down. So now we should be oriented. Okay, so AB at 29, and we'll do it at 30. Actually, I
And
think I
go to
might have
10
started that a
actually.
second early. Because as I looked over, I saw that the BT had come down a little bit more. I'm going to change that projection. I don't like that ecliptic projection. Okay, so everything is... Zoom in a bit. Oops.
We have the moon periapsis as the center of the map right now. You can switch if you want to simply the moon and get the moon nicely in the center of the map. But anyway, we're done right now.
Is it P-moon?
No, simply moon this time.
Okay. Oh, P is periapsis. Okay.
Hmm.
So moon, and then just zoom in. And then we're all set. All right, well, let's bring up map MFD just out of curiosity, just to see what that looks like. And I also, yeah, we're right on track. And I also want to see what BaseSync reports as the off-base distance. 22 meters this time, so we are right exactly there.
And all we used from the Earth to the Moon as corrections was what, 6-7 meters per second.
Yeah, it was almost nothing. I can't imagine that it could really get much better than that. It would be cool if you could just do an absolute like one burn. That would be really amazing. But okay, well, that definitely I think helps a lot. And where, believe it or not, we're coming up onto 30 minutes here. So we'll go ahead and end this part of the video. And in the next video, I think we're going to take a look at what it takes to do the reverse trip, because it's good to go from the Earth to the Moon, but it's also nice to know how to get back. So we'll start landed at Brighton Beach on one of the landing pads and figure out how to get back home. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay, well, everybody, thanks for watching. Hit the like button if you would, and check the description down below. I'll put a link to Dimitris' YouTube channel. Be sure to check that out as well. And leave a comment to just say thanks to him for helping us out. And I will see you in the next video.